This Eagle Court of Honor will now come to order. Chaplain's aide, Noah Lotwin, will provide an inspirational message.
O Lord, we give thanks to you for all of your blessings, especially those we are given through scouting. Our prayer is that you continue to bestow blessings upon Troop 773, its leaders, scouts, parents, volunteers, and supporters, and sponsors. We thank you for the leadership of our brothers who, tonight, have reached the height of eagle. It is by your grace that we share and learn from the talents and abilities which you have given us. May we be able to advance, not only in our scouting ranks, but also in our understanding of one another and in our brotherhood. Amen.
Tonight we have the honor and pleasure of recognizing Aaron Huang and Brian Huang for the award of Eagle Scout. The parents and scout leaders of the Eagle candidates whom we honor tonight have labored long and faithfully to develop them towards alert and participating citizenship through the Boy Scout program. It is, however, each candidate's personal efforts and achievements that culminate tonight, at this evening, in this presentation of the Eagle Award. Please escort the Eagle candidates.
I have led my braves to the summit of this mountain in a long journey from our camp to show you the rewards of your climb along the trail. When you begin this trip as a young Cub Scout on the trail many years ago, you had this mountaintop as your goal. You have now reached the summit, the realm of the Eagles. But before admitting you into this honored membership, we must first hear the story of your long climb along the trail. You first learned Scout skills as you climbed through the ranks of tenderfoot, second class, and first class.
After reaching the first class rank, you have worked diligently and have sought experts who gave you valuable counsel on many subjects. Then, additional merit badges allowed you to be a Star Scout, while still more found you wearing the heart of a Life Scout. Many more moons have passed while harder requirements found you adding to your qualifications until you have achieved Scouting's highest rank, Eagle.
You have worked to the point where you are about to become an Eagle. Listen, first, to the wisdom of the four winds.
I am the spirit of the east wind. I represent the common law, your duty to God and to country. Trustworthy, loyal, and helpful are the qualities that a man who lives by the laws of this land must possess. See that you do not lose the great blessing of a lawful land.
As the spirit of the west wind, I represent the law of equity, your duty to country and others. Friendly, courteous, and kind are the laws that breathe of conscience. They create the atmosphere that comes from within your heart. The desire for you always to be friends to those of all ages, young and old. Be courteous to those who pass along your trail. Cast away the harmful spirit of unfriendliness and selfishness.
I am the spirit of the south wind. I represent civil law, your duty to others and to self. Obedient, cheerful, and thrifty are the character of civility. A life of cheerful obedience is necessary for the development of a true citizen. Obedience is something we all must learn, to take orders and carry them out cheerfully. Real thrift means earning, spending wisely, saving, and sharing with those less fortunate.
I am the spirit of the north wind, the most powerful of them all. I represent the divine law, your duty to be brave, clean, and reverent. To be brave is to be unselfish. To be clean in body and soul is to be pure in heart. Cast from your mind and body any evil spirits that try to weaken or destroy the divine law. Live a life of reverence. Be always brave, clean, and reverent.
Through the climb up the scouting trail, the badges have changed as your abilities grew. But one pledge remained unchanged, the Scout Oath. Now candidates, make the Scout sign and recite the Scout Oath slowly and clearly to renew this promise which you first made many moons ago.
On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight.
This court recognizes these candidates as fully qualified for the rank of Eagle Scout. They should understand that the Eagle Scout rank is a responsibility as well as an honor.
Without love and guidance of understanding parents, a boy is severely disadvantaged. Your parents have watched you grow and develop. They have worked with you in health, nursed you in sickness, guided your thoughts and actions, and helped you in untold ways. Your parents have been a strength to support you. One of them was always there in times of trouble and for help. Your home influence will last throughout your life. I ask your parents to stand beside you as a symbol that they will continue to help the young Eagles to grow the qualities of leadership and citizenship that true Eagles must have.
As a token of your willingness to continue your support for these young Eagles, I ask you, Mrs. McHugh and Mrs. Wong, to pin these Eagle medals on your sons. Eagle Scouts Aaron Huang and Brian Huang, you have seen that your mothers plan to stand by you in the future. You now have the honor to pin miniature eagle pins on your mother's lapels. It is also customary that you give your mother an eagle kiss. Mr. Huang and Mr. Huang, please present your son with the Eagle Scout certificate and personal letter from the Chief Scout Executive, Boy Scouts of America.
Just go to the next section.
Eagle Scouts Aaron Huang and Brian Huang, your fathers have stood by you over the years and have offered their encouragement and assistance. As the symbol of what they have contributed to your attainment of this award, you now have the honor to present them miniature eagle lapel pins.
As ceremonial chief, I now call upon Mr. Slexter, Troop 773 chairman, to give these new Eagles their charge.
As a representative of the Boy Scouts of America, I wish to welcome you to the Brotherhood of Eagle Scouts. Little more than 4% of the boys who enter scouting achieve what you have achieved here tonight. The requirements are demanding but fair, but your achievement is a recognition of your perseverance and your abilities. But I'm not here to talk about your past accomplishments, which are great, but of your future opportunities. Your Eagle Award will constantly enrich your life. Of course, when you go to a scouting function, you'll be recognized as a doer. You have the opportunity of standing as an equal among the leaders. But I think your Eagle Award will go far beyond scouting itself. When you apply for college or look for a good job, Eagle Scout on the application will place you in a select few. Your scouting experience and leadership and sense of honor you've developed will carry you further than a certificate and a piece of ribbon in your drawer. You'll have more opportunity to be of service to your fellows through school, through work, and through scouting, because you know what you can do. In the years to come, you'll casually meet people who are Eagle Scouts. There'll be an instant bond, as you've each shared a common experience. The comradeship amongst Eagle Scouts extends throughout the nation and wherever you go in the world of scouting, or in the larger world beyond. For the rest of your life, you will travel as a marked man, an Eagle Scout. I charge you, Aaron and Brian, to undertake your citizenship with a solemn dedication. Be a leader, but only lead towards the best. Lift up every task you do and every office that you hold to the highest level of service, to God and to your fellow man. Live and serve, that those who know you will be inspired to better living. We have too many who use their strength and brains to exploit others and gain selfish ends. I charge you, Aaron and Brian, to be amongst those who dedicate their skills and ability to the common good. Build America on the solid foundation of clean living, honest work, unselfish citizenship, and reverence for God. And whatever you do, you will leave behind a record that every other scout may be justly proud. Always remember, Eagle Scouts, Aaron Huang and Brian Huang, the words of the East Wind. To be trustworthy, loyal, helpful. The words of the west wind, which tell one to be friendly, courteous, and kind. The words of the south wind urge one to be obedient, cheerful, and thrifty. And finally, the words of the north wind, the most powerful of all, admonish one to be brave, clean, and reverent.
I now welcome you, Eagle Scouts Aaron Huang and Brian Huang, to the summit of your trails. The eagle is strong and powerful and flies unblinking into the face of the sun. He soars high and builds on a pinnacle. You must not shrink from your duties as eagles. Will the audience please rise? We now call upon the Great Spirit of all for his blessing on these new Eagle Scouts. May they always strive to attain the noblest and highest ideals of life, be their strength and their guide. Cause them to follow a straight trail and to never be a reason for other scouts to waver from their path. Protect them for many moons to come. May the great master of all scouts be with us until our trails cross again. The audience may be seated.
I'd like to present Aaron and Brian with letters of congratulations from Governor O'Malley, Senator Mikulski, and President Obama. And let me take the liberty of reading from the letter from President Obama. The White House, Washington. Congratulations on earning the rank of Eagle Scout. Becoming an Eagle Scout is an outstanding achievement which reflects your hard work and dedication. Your accomplishment serves as an example of excellence and a source of pride for your community. Best wishes for continued success. Sincerely, Barack Obama and Michelle Obama.
By virtue of you earning the Eagle Award, you're now eligible to become a member of the National Eagle Scout Association, and our troop will enroll you as a 5-year member of the association. Your name and year of attaining the rank of Eagle Scout will also be added to the Troop 773 roll of more than 150 Eagles, which is posted in the meeting hall. In fact, Brian was our 156th Eagle, and Aaron was our 157th Eagle since the inception of the troop. Fail not your fellow Eagles, for your responsibilities are now greater than ever. As you go forward in life, receiving other honors and awards, always remember this night when you became an Eagle Scout.
I now have the pleasure of presenting each of you with a flag of our country which is flown over the United States Capitol in honor of you achieving Eagle Scout. You and your parents will now be seated.
I now have the pleasure of being the guest speaker for Aaron Huang. I'm here tonight to share some things about an exceptional young man, Aaron Huang. He's a quiet guy, so you may have seen him around the troop with his irrepressible good spirit, but many of you probably don't know what lies beneath. Aaron started out as a scout, as a Wolf Scout, with his father as a den leader. And the highlight of that Cub Scout career was a victory in the Pinewood Derby, mostly attributable to being the only one who got the wheels on the car straight. He progressed to the Arrow of Light, the highest Cub Scout award available, and then joined Troop 773. His cadre has been impressive, with over 60% of them achieving the rank of Eagle Scout. A few highlights from Aaron's scouting career include his first canoe trip, which, due to the extremely low water levels, would be more appropriately called a canoe drag, over rocks and trees, interspersed with brief periods of floating. With any scouting career, there are hard times, times that test a scout and cause them to ask why they ever left their warm bed in the first place. The Klondike Derby was one such event. With a long weekend of constant single-digit temperatures, Aaron wondered, as he shivered in his tent, if he would be left with only one digit before the end of the weekend. Wilderness survival was another such episode. Aaron and his team built a survivor shelter that would be more appropriately called a survival mini-mansion. Unfortunately, the only source of heat in such a shelter is the body warmth of the scouts. So smaller is definitely better. And they contemplated this fact as they shivered the entire night away. I had the good fortune of being on Aaron's boat when we went to Sea Base 2 years ago. And idyllic would be the only word for the Keys. Warm breezes, salt water, and sailing. It turns out that Aaron doesn't exactly have salt water coursing through his veins. I believe he made it through the first day, but once we headed out to the ocean, out of the bay, he turned greener and greener and greener. While the local fish appreciated his contributions to the sea, Aaron was about as seasick as one person can be. Never a complaint, he soldiered through the adventure, to the conclusion. And I really don't think I've ever seen anyone happier to put his first shaky foot back on land. Like many scouts, the giant bonfire at Goshen would be one of his favorite memories of his time in 773. And as I reflect on the bright spots and the learning opportunities that Aaron has had, it's actually a wonder that he made it to Eagle. But I believe that's a sign of his perseverance, a trait that's going to serve him well in life. He has, like all Eagle Scouts, taken a number of leadership positions, including scribe, patrol leader, and assistant patrol leader. And leadership did not come easily to him. He had to operate well outside of his comfort zone as he learned how to lead. Aaron is a superb student. He's in his final year as in the International Baccalaureate program at Richard Montgomery, and he's been accepted to Yale, where he intends to study English, honing his ample writing skills to a fine edge. He's already been recognized for this skill, winning competitions for one-act plays as a junior and as a senior, and he's had a science fiction story that he wrote published online on a writing site. Acting and performing are some of Aaron's other passions. I recall seeing him in a lead role in middle school in a Gilbert and Sullivan play. I could not believe that this quiet, introspective youth that I knew from chess club in elementary school was belting out complex lyrics with style and flair. It was just amazing. He's gone on to perform in many plays, including one as one of the Barbershop Quartet in The Music Man, great role, and most recently as a main villain in Sweeney Todd. Singing has become a passion of his, participating in chorus and an all-male a cappella group known as the Testostertones. True creativity. A major highlight of this group was to perform, the chorus, was to perform in St. Peter's Basilica in Italy at the Vatican with the chorus this last summer. One of my highlights in Aaron's singing career was the annual No Talent show that we hold for the troop. I had forced the senior scouts each to perform, to set an example to the other scouts. Aaron complied, albeit somewhat begrudgingly. When the night of the performance came, he regaled us with a modified Gilbert and Sullivan tune, where he sang, that Mr. Schlexer had forced him to sing this song and really didn't listen to the protests of the Scouts, himself included. And he was right, I hadn't listened to them at all. He's also participated in the Shakespeare Club and its academic. And as you can read in the program, his Eagle Project combined his love for scouting and his love for performing, bringing a little happiness into the day of seniors at a local facility. And I've got to tell you, my favorite Eagle Projects are where a scout finds an intersection of something they love and the Eagle Project, and he clearly did that in this case. As Aaron reflected with me on his scouting career, the circle of scouting life struck him. Starting out as a young scout, learning, growing into an instructor, then as a leader, and seeing scouts that you taught the basic skills now teaching other scouts, and ultimately taking over the leadership of the troop. To the younger scouts, his message: get outside your comfort zone. Go outside, camp, lead. But most importantly, take the scout law and live it. Take that learning with you into your journey. And I, for one, can't wait to see where Aaron's journey brings him. I now have the privilege of introducing Eagle Scout Aaron Huang.
Well, first of all, thank you, Mr. Schlexer, for writing that fantastic speech for me, and I now feel the pressure on as I have to speak myself. On my first camp out with the Boy Scouts, it rained. I don't even remember much about that trip, other than the fact that it rained and it was dark and cold. I was still a Cub Scout then, and I was camping with my dad, and he and I were both amazed that the Boy Scouts actually camped in the rain. Like, how crazy were these people, we said. Of course, we all know now exactly how crazy we all are. We don't just camp in the rain, we camp in the freezing snow, through lightning and wind. We hike in canoe and collect firewood in the rain and in the storm and in the torrential downpour and in the freezing cold, as some of the Klondike Derby Scouts now know. I know all about rain now. I know how it churns soil into mud and makes your tent cold and clammy first at the bottom and then works its way up the walls. Sometimes it gets inside and collects in pouches and low places, deep enough to soak your clothes or drown your cell phone if you leave it in a pouch. You see, with the Boy Scouts, though, I also had a chance to discover that rain is just a small part of a big world. I got to sail oceans, climb mountains, build gigantic fires. I think you guys know the ones. And what scouting really showed me was that I always loved the sunshine, but scouting showed me how to love dirt and rain and fire too. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that Boy Scouts is important to all of us because it rounds us out. To those who are wild, it teaches obedience. To those who are rude or mean-spirited, it teaches to be courteous and kind. To those of us who are afraid, it teaches to be brave. That's why we have the Scout Law. A Scout is not just trustworthy or loyal or helpful or friendly. A Scout is all of those things and over a half dozen besides. Because ultimately, Scouting isn't just about teaching you to be a better Scout. It's about planting the seeds to make us all better people. Of course, in that vein, Scouting couldn't be anything without the people themselves, all of us who give something to help make us all better. And so I would like to thank all the Scouts, parents, and friends who came out to support us in this ceremony, and double thank the Scouts who came this Sunday to rehearse the ceremony and make sure everything went smoothly. I'd like to thank all the Scoutmasters I've ever had, Mr. Sartucci, who is here with us in spirit, Mr. Schlexer, who gave me my fantastic speech, and Mr. Hartman, who is our current reigning Supreme Leader. Thank you to my parents for helping me get this far. Really, anything I've ever done is because of the love and support you guys have shown me. And lastly, I would like to get this whole speech under wraps by wishing you all a good night and wishing good luck to any Scouts who have to camp in the rain.
I now have the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker for Brian Hwang, Mr. Kevin Settlage.
Did you hear the story about the spaghetti dinner one time, well, maybe 2 years ago, when Brian was working the hot drink station? Anybody? Guess not. Well, a fellow scout of Brian's, a friend who'd been assigned to be the head greeter in charge of seating people. And this friend walks up to Brian, who was dutifully standing ready to serve his drinks, and this friend noticed that Brian's scout sash, yes, Brian's scout sash, was beautifully covered with more than 24 merit badges, twice as many as this greeter's sash. And the head greeter reports that he was so surprised when Brian happily traded his sash so that he could look better at the front gate. Now, this friend admitted that this wasn't necessarily morally straight, but it was a clear indicator of just how much Brian wants to be helpful. Yes? Is that true? Is that story true? All right. I want to make sure it was a mixed thing going on there. Well, when I interviewed Brian about scouting, his scouting career, and his effects and the efforts, to abide by the scout law, he indicated that being helpful was the thing that comes easiest to him, followed quickly by being friendly and then kind. After helping him maneuver up the ranks of Cub Scouts and assisting with his first 3 years as a Boy Scout, I would have to agree with him. Brian was always ready to help when asked. I emphasize when asked because today, just 5 months before graduating and turning 18, Brian is much more articulate about whom he will help, when he will help, and why he will help. In other words, I think he may have achieved the balance between the two promises in the Scout Oath. Duty to people, which make up some of those promises, as well as duty to self. As summarized by what Brian says, quote, "Nobody can tell me what to do if I don't want to do it." Not bad. I wish I'd thought that when I was 18. His family hints and smiles, at least his father was smiling, that Brian has always been this way. However, there is at least one thing Brian will have to start doing for the first time, even if he doesn't want to. This he'll have to start doing when he moves to Cambridge, Massachusetts to attend MIT, and that, of course, is his laundry. Because apparently, there is no merit badge for learning how to use a washing machine and a clothes dryer. Or is there? No, I guess not. Okay. But I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. Let's back up a bit. Let's go back to some of the highlights from Brian's 6 years as a camper, biker, or 7 years, I guess. Bike rider, canoeer, swimmer, all those other things that are so much fun in Scouts. The last of these, of course, being the swimmer, which is the favorite activity of Brian, which he began at the age of 2, and he has since then parlayed it also into summer employment as he coaches young kids. Bike riding and canoeing trips usually involved 1 or 2 nights of camping out. As a younger scout, Brian also spent a week at Goshen several summers in a row. And the same scout who borrowed Brian's sash at the spaghetti dinner remembers Brian as the go-to person, especially when there was something dirty or gross to do. As reported by Wesley, oh, I'm sorry, did I mention his name? Excuse me, I wasn't supposed to use his name. I have to forgive me for that one. Anyway, Wesley says, and I quote, "Even when several scouts stuck their noses up," none of you would do that, would you? No. When they stuck their noses up, when Brian was asked, he completed the job with great proficiency. Is that true? We just have to check these things. I haven't been around much in the last few years. Of course, there was this one time where I'm sure Brian had wished that he had cleaned away all the food and the dishes before anyone even had a chance to eat anything. He recalls with painful regret something called the pineapple upside down cake that Antonio had cooked up for a dessert after a meal at Goshen. The cake made several scouts very sick. One camper even had to go home. After surviving Antonio's cake, then Brian had to go out into the woods and earn his wilderness survival badge. Of course, he should have earned a Decandia Death Cake Survival Merit Badge. For anyone who knows Antonio, I'll get back to him later with. Well, making it through weekend campouts also required Brian to hone different set of physical endurance skills that included, and you boys know this so well, wading in cold rain with wet clothes after a canoeing trip, for example. I guess that one weekend the boys had assumed that the weather would stay sunny and warm over the entire weekend, but it didn't. None of them apparently remembered to refresh their memories about the Scout motto, which is what, Brian? Be prepared. Oh, okay, be prepared. But they didn't bring along the right stuff to keep themselves warm and dry. During most of his early biking campouts, Brian remembers how difficult it was to keep up with the older scouts, which meant really pushing himself to keep up. Most of the biking campouts were a lot of fun, Brian says, emphasizing that, quote, being on a bike was not painful until the day after. I guess it used different muscles than a swimmer's muscles, so it didn't really notice it until you got off the next day. Well, I would say that that's a pretty good life lesson to learn early on, especially from a person who's about to graduate and who's college bound, that bicycle riding only hurts when you get off. Canoeing campouts offered a whole different realm of applying the Scout law, specifically bravery. And here is where I'll take the liberty to share a personal story that Brian apparently doesn't remember nearly as well as I do. Maybe that's because I saw my life and his life flashing before my eyes. Brian was a first-year Boy Scout, along with my son Adam, who made it clear that he did not want to be in a canoe with his father. Fine. So, I remember thinking that Brian, being at the time much smaller and slight of stature, that he would be easier to retrieve from the rushing water if he fell out of the boat and into the water. So things started out well as Brian and I headed down the river. And about halfway, we encountered some rapids and unfortunately headed straight for a fallen tree that was leaning out across from the left bank. When we met the tree at a perpendicular angle, Brian, being the smart kid that he was, quickly ducked down in the front of the canoe, and we slid under the branch, which then caught me straight on in the chest. Wasn't his fault, but I won't forget it. As I squeezed my upper body down barely low enough to disengage from this tree, which I thought was going to kill both of us, we turned at an angle and headed diagonally straight across to the opposite shore. Well, somewhere along the way in the rush, we ended up flipping the canoe. Brian, who let out some kind of high-pitched combination of laugh and scream, I'm not sure what it was, recalls how much fun it was. I'm thinking, he either has no true memory of what happened on this canoe trip, or I exuded such bravery and trustworthiness that Brian had no idea what dangers really lied ahead of us. I don't know which one it was, but we made it through. We dragged the canoe to the shore, we pulled it out, emptied it. That might have been Mr. Schweitzer who was helping us with pushing the thing back in the water and pulling it over and getting it all dried, and off we went again. No big deal. Brian's love of water has reoccurred as a theme many times in his quest to earn his eagle. Brian, who grew up competing in clearly marked lanes of chlorinated pools, he recalls how swimming at Goshen in his first time experience in a lake was very challenging because, quote, you can't see anything. That's true. You think he would have seen that or known that going into it. But in spite of this, Brian still successfully completed in 2 different summers the mile swim. Well, after mastering the lake water, Brian took on the ocean. Same trip, I believe, that he spoke of in the summer of 2012, but on a different crew. It was, of course, at the High Adventure Sea Base Camp in the Florida Keys. Well, he and 6 other crew members, I'll mention them since I don't know if many of them are here. Well, it's Patrick and Victor Esch. Many of you may know these folks. Danny Ely and his father, Lowell Ely. Nick Mason and Brian's father, Dr. Evan Wong. Spent a week on a sailboat, earning, as Brian puts it, or maybe somebody else did, earning the dubious honor of laziest crew, awarded to them by the boat's captain. And when I asked him about this, Brian said, oh, well, he attributed this to, the captain did, to the crew's, their auspicious recognition was a mix of the warm sun and the night boat watch shifts, which, of course, is something that none of the other Troop 773 crews had to do. So they all were laughing at them because they were tired, and they got the laziest award. Well, time rushes on, and so now I wish to conclude. I want to share one of my strong beliefs about Boy Scouts and their leaders. People in this organization, or any people really who get involved with the Scouts, they take away only as much from their scouting experience as they are willing to put into it. And I would say that Brian, who stuck to the goal of earning his eagle, will take away not only a pin as a symbol on his uniform, but will carry with him skills and wisdom he never would have acquired without his 5 years as a Cub Scout and his 7 years as a Boy Scout. For those of you who know Brian, I have a question. Those of you who've worked with him, I want you to ask yourself, what you will remember most about him? What has Brian always shared with you in an affirming way to show you that he really is helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, and cheerful? Let's look at it now. What is this? His smile, his cheery disposition, and his infectious laugh. I think he'd laugh at anything, and that's a good thing because it gets you through the tough times. But even today, I still see in Brian a bright-eyed 6-year-old in an orange tiger uniform who loves to watch Dragon Tales and Arthur on television and who takes in the world around him and, here it is, folks, finds the good in it. To paraphrase Brian's own words, he doesn't like to think about obstacles. And actually, boys, I want you to listen to this carefully because I was even profoundly affected hearing this from a kid his age. He says, I don't like to think about obstacles, and he doesn't like it. He doesn't like it when people tell him that something cannot be done. Trust me, if you can get to that point as an almost 18-year-old, you'll be able to go much further in life. And I'm sure that Scouts helped him learn that. Knowing this to be true of you, I would suggest that if a campaign were ever started, that Scout leader isn't in the back, that regional guy. If a campaign were ever started to amend the Scout law by adding 2 things, determination and commitment, Brian, you would be the poster child. I honestly believe that. Stuck to this the whole way through. Well, your family and your friends are very proud of you, Brian. And Mrs. Settlage and I will always hold a special place in our hearts for the memories we share with you. So congratulations on earning your eagle.
I now have the privilege of introducing Eagle Scout Brian Hwang.
In customary Troop 773 fashion, I wrote the speech yesterday and finished it after school today. Here it goes. I started scouting back in 6th grade after being a part of the Cub Scout troop with Mr. Sutledge in Troop 773. Early on, I guess I had in my head that I really wanted to be an Eagle Scout. It was not going to be easy, but I knew eventually I would make it there. Looking back on 7 years of scouting, one of my greatest memories took place in Florida Sea Base that Mr. Sutledge already touched on. Our trip occurred during a rare 2-week period in which you were allowed to actually catch lobsters at the bottom of the ocean. So with a fishing net and plastic stick, we dove to the bottom. As a swimmer, I thought this would be easy. Dive to the bottom, get a lobster, swim up, repeat. I mean, how many lobsters could I get? I wouldn't stop. I was ready for a lobster feast. Turns out it wasn't that easy. After about an hour of swimming up and down, and up and down again, just staring at the bottom of the water, looking for the lobster, we didn't catch a single lobster. And I doubted we would ever catch one. So, long story short, we actually did catch one lobster the next day on our second try, barely of legal size to eat. So, it really wasn't your restaurant-sized lobster. I would call it more of a large shrimp. So, yeah, after we cooked it, everyone on board got basically one bite, or actually one bite. Hours of submerging and surfacing about 16 feet of water may not seem worth it for a single bite of lobster, but I certainly found it worthwhile. It wasn't that single bite, the reward that made it enjoyable, but rather the challenge of catching the lobster and actually being able to say, yeah, I caught a lobster. That made it worthwhile. Scouting is sort of the same way. In scouting, you do a lot for each merit badge, and what you get is just a patch. Only you and the other scouts know what you had to overcome, what you had to learn, in order to get that patch on your sash. And one of the things I like most about scouting is that you can do what you want because you want to learn, or motorboat, or fish, or whatever. Of course, there are required merit badges to become an Eagle, but if you want to become an Eagle, you'll probably enjoy doing them. Before this evening, many of you scouts are probably wondering who I am. Brian Fong? I don't think I know that scout. I must admit that as I grew older, I began to dwindle away from scouting. Other activities like swimming, diving, golf, schoolwork, after-school clubs, an internship, and the list goes on, all found the spotlight. Looking back, I regret not participating as much as I should have. To all of you scouts who are already way more involved in this troop than I already am, or could have ever been, keep it up. We are all lucky to be a part of this. We are all lucky to be a part of, as far as I know, one of the best troops around, or the best troop around. To you other scouts, the ones you see once every couple months, if you're lucky, the other Brian Wongs of the troop, don't let scouting fall by the wayside. It is certainly possible to do many things you love and be good at all of them, or most of them. Stick with it. Lastly, before we eat, I would like to thank everyone who's helped me become an Eagle. My 3 Scoutmasters, Mr. Sartucci, who is in here tonight, Mr. Slexner, and Mr. Hartman, whom, without your guidance and readiness to meet with me sometimes on very short notice, I wouldn't be here today. I want to thank Mr. Sutledge for gladly accepting to speak tonight after being out of touch for many years, and thank you for leading our Cub Scout pack all the way. And then, of course, my parents. Dad, you certainly motivated me to get here. And Mom, thank you for supporting me all the way. And thank you both for so many of the other things, and I just don't have time to say. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Last summer and fall, 2 other Troop 773 scouts achieved the rank of Eagle Scout after graduating from high school. Their college commitments prevented them from attending tonight's ceremony, but we did want to recognize these achievements and present their families with their Eagle Scout awards, flags, and letters. Will Janice Sartucci come up for Daniel Sartucci, and will Henry Sy please come up as representing for Keanu Sy.
side with the Eagle Scout certificate, personal letter from the Chief Scout Executive, Boy Scouts for Maryland, letters of congratulations from Governor O'Malley, Senator Mikulski, and President Obama, and the flag of our country was flown over the United States Capitol in honor of them achieving Eagle Scout. Congratulations to Daniel and Kiana for their achievements, and we wish them and their families all the best.
Before closing the Eagle Court of Honor, I have a couple of announcements to make. After the completion of this Eagle Court of Honor, there'll be a short break. We're going to do the flag ceremony, and then we'll have a short break. We're going to go downstairs. After there'll be cake and refreshments to honor our 2 new Eagle Scouts, which were provided by their families. Thank you. Everybody's invited to attend, so please do. Now, as is customary, I ask that all the Eagle Scouts who are present come forward to congratulate Scouting's newest Eagle Scouts. If you guys could come to the center, please, that'd be great. Please note that Aaron and Brian's parents have asked that they be given an opportunity to take a group picture as well as some family pictures with the other Eagle Scouts. So, Eagle Scouts. Okay. The Eagle Scout. Let's do parents, yes. There you go. Yep. Why don't we do pictures with parents, or would you rather do that after the flag ceremony? Okay. So, SPL, would you please lead us in the retiring of the colors?
All rise. Color guard. You join me in the Scout Law. Scouts
Trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent.
2. Color guard. Post colors. Color guard. Post. Troop at ease. I do ask that the service patrol stays behind to help sort of clean everything up.
This Court of Honor is now closed. Why don't we get some pictures?